Have you ever had one of those moments where a coincidence is just so perfectly timed and like so incredibly specific that it actually feels like reality is glitching on you?
Oh, absolutely. Like you're thinking about some super obscure movie you haven't seen in maybe 10 years, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then literally 3 seconds later, someone walks by wearing a T-shirt with a quote from that exact movie.
Right. And for just a split second, all your rational skepticism just completely
That
evaporates.
totally drops. Your brain is instantly like, okay, well, obviously the universe is trying to send me a deliberate coded message right now.
Which is funny because, we are fundamentally just pattern matching machines. That's how human brains work.
Right.
So when a pattern surfaces that totally defies our little internal probability calculator, the cognitive friction is huge. We get uncomfortable.
We want to find a reason for it.
Exactly. We immediately try to search for a causal link. We want to assign this grand underlying architecture to the chaos, mostly because, well, true randomness is actually deeply unsettling to the human psyche.
It really is. But I mean, most of us just brush it off, right? Like you tell the weird T-shirt story at a dinner party, everybody goes, wow, that's wild. You shrug and you move on with your life.
Yeah, that's the normal response.
But today, we are unpacking the work of someone who took that weird, fleeting feeling of cosmic weirdness and basically locked it inside a mathematical cage.
Oh, very strict mathematical code.
Seriously, we are doing a deep dive into this highly unusual, rigorously documented GitHub repository in Zenodo record. It's titled SAW-1, Spooky Action at Work.
Right. Authored by Trent Slade at SAW-IMC.
That's the one. And our whole mission for this deep dive is to basically dissect this bizarre, completely accidental collision between a generative heavy metal song and a cutting-edge theoretical physics paper.
Which sounds like a Mad Lib, honestly.
It really does. But the thing that makes this source material so incredibly compelling isn't just that the collision happened. It's the author's just relentless refusal to call it magic.
Yeah, Slade actually builds a formal mathematical framework to explain the coincidence.
Instead of just saying, whoa, mind blown, he forces us to really look at how we find meaning in generative art, especially in this era where we are all just drowning in information.
Right, and that rigor is what elevates this whole thing from a fun, spooky anecdote into a really serious exploration of semantics.
So where do we even start with this?
Well, to really understand the gravity of this collision, you have to look at the architectural constraints of the music first.
Right, because this wasn't just some guy strumming a guitar in his bedroom and getting lucky with a random lyric.
Not at all. The entire production chain started in this private research environment. It's called the E8 Chakra Vortex Mouth Sonification Lab.
Which I just have to say sounds exactly like the name of a progressive metal band I probably would have listened to in high school.
It really does. But in reality, it's this highly structured generative environment, and it runs on something they call an ETQ 101 symbolic basis.
Okay, so let's pull apart how that basis actually functions.
Yeah.
Because as I was reading the source material, I realized the math here is really the foundation of the whole coincidence.
It absolutely is. So the system is constrained to exactly 101 states. It's built on two things called singlets and then 33 three-state blocks.
Okay, wait. Why 101 states? That feels like such an oddly prime, arbitrary number to build a whole audio framework around. Like, what does organizing the math that way actually do?
Think of a singlet as this non-negotiable anchor in the math.
Okay.
It's a fixed point. It basically forces the generative system to maintain a constant baseline, like a mathematical center of gravity.
So it keeps the whole thing grounded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the 33 three-state blocks provide all the variables.
Mm.
If you think about how music works, you need tension, you need release, and you need a neutral state.
Oh, right. Otherwise, it's just a flat drone or pure noise.
Exactly. So those three-state blocks give you the structural mathematics for those musical movements. Meanwhile, those two singlets make sure the system doesn't just spin off into total harmonic chaos.
Got it. So 33 times 3 is 99, plus the two singlets gives you exactly the 101 state basis.
You got it.
It's essentially this tightly controlled mathematical terrarium for sound.
That's a great way to put it.
But the author actually goes even further to restrict what can escape that terrarium, right?
Yeah.
Using this operation they call folding.
Yes, the frequency folding. This part is fascinating. The audio receiver basically forces every single frequency generated by that 101 state math into a strict passband.
And that passband is between 80 hertz and 1400 hertz, right?
Correct. And the mechanics of how it forces them into that window are just so elegant. If the math spits out a frequency below 80 hertz, the system doesn't just cut it off or delete it.
What does it do?
It repeatedly doubles the frequency until it finally crosses that 80 hertz threshold.
Oh, wow. Which, if you know anything about music theory, doubling a frequency is just shifting the pitch up by exactly 1 octave.
Precisely. And it works the other way, too. If the system throws out a wild frequency way above 1400 hertz, it repeatedly halves it.
So dropping it down octave by octave.
Exactly. It drops it down until it falls into that acceptable window.
So that guarantees that no matter how absolutely chaotic the underlying calculations get, the final acoustic output is always entirely within this human audible deterministic spectrum.
Right. It's a brilliant acoustic cage.
It's almost like taking a massive sheet of dough, right?
Right.
And you just keep folding it over and over itself until it perfectly fits the exact dimensions of your baking pan.
That's exactly what it is.
Like every piece of the original math is still in there. It's just compressed into this highly specific space.
And the initial result of all that folding and anchoring was this 90-second reference track. It was named Custom Chakra Field ETQ 101 Chakra Scent 101.
Very catchy title.
Very. But the source material is super meticulous about the actual audio measurements of that reference track.
Right, because of those mathematical singlets acting as the anchors, right?
Exactly. The track maintained this deeply stable ground tone, hovering right around 481.5 hertz. But as those 90 seconds progress, you actually see the upper spectrum expanding.
So the bandwidth is widening.
Yeah, it creates this increasingly resonant, complex field of sound.
And then the whole production chain takes this massive, violent pivot.
The fun part.
Yeah, exactly 50 minutes and 24.426 seconds later. And yes, I love that the author documents this literally down to the millisecond, that pristine, purely mathematical chakra track is fed into a generative AI process.
Specifically, they use Suno.
Right. And the output of that generative process was a totally new track titled Industrial Metal God.
So the AI basically took this serene 101 state sonification and mutated it into this incredibly aggressive piece of heavy metal.
But the key here is that it wasn't just like throwing a random distortion pedal over the original audio file, right?
No, not at all. The AI actually mapped that expanding upper spectrum of the reference track we just talked about, and it translated it into what the author describes as crystalline metallic overtones.
And a heavy bass/guitar pedal law.
Yes. This boundary right here, between the rigid math of the reference track and the subjective aesthetics of the heavy metal track, this is super critical to the author's formalization.
Yeah, in the paper, Slade uses this specific symbol. It's like a little squiggly arrow.
Right, to represent artistic interpretation.
Right, and the document explicitly states this is not a waveform identity, meaning the new metal track does not share the same raw acoustic data as the original track.
Which can be a bit hard to wrap your head around at first.
Totally. So to visualize what that squiggly arrow is actually doing, I was thinking about it like this. Imagine you have the structural blueprints for a massive Gothic cathedral.
Okay.
You take all the raw numbers, the exact weight-bearing ratios, the tension metrics of the flying buttresses, the arch angles, and you feed all that raw data into an AI.
Right.
But this AI has only ever been trained on heavy metal music.
Okay, I see where you're going.
The AI doesn't build you a physical church made out of guitars.
No, it can't do that.
That doesn't have that.
Right.
Instead, it uses those exact structural tension ratios to dictate, say, the aggression of a drum beat or the dissonance of a really crystalline guitar riff.
That is a perfect analogy. The underlying physics and ratios are completely preserved, but the acoustic expression of them is entirely reinvented.
The latent space of the generative model is basically acting as a translation engine. It translates structural logic directly into aesthetic vibe.
And honestly, grasping that whole pipeline, the 101 basis, the frequency folding, and that generative interpretation through the squiggly arrow, that is the only way to really appreciate the sheer statistical force of the collision that happens next.
Because all that crazy math we just talked about,
Yeah.
that was literally just the setup.
It's all prologue.
So let's look at the exact moment this tightly controlled musical experiment crashed headfirst into theoretical physics.
Right. So a month prior to the song actually being created, on June 25th, 2026, a physicist named Marco Pettini published a preprint paper.
And Pettini's paper proposed a completely non-standard space-time model.
Yeah, so we are all used to operating in what's called standard Minkowski space, right? Which is 3 spatial dimensions, up, down, left, right, forward, back, and 1 temporal dimension, time.
Just normal reality.
Exactly. But Pettini is proposing a dimensional signature of 3, 2. So 3 dimensions of space and 2 dimensions of time.
Which instantly just breaks our traditional understanding of causality.
It completely shatters it.
Because adding a second temporal dimension means time isn't just a straight line anymore, right? It becomes a plane. You could theoretically loop around events or move sideways through time.
The physics implications are mind-bending. But let's hold that wild physics aside for just a second and fast forward to August 18th, 2026.
Okay.
The author of our source document, Trent Slade, is sitting there watching a YouTube video by the physicist Sabine Hassenfelder.
Who is excellent, by the way.
She is. And in the video, she's breaking down Pettini's proposed 3-2 spacetime model. And as he's watching this explanation, Slade realizes something absolutely impossible.
A specific lyric that the AI generated weeks earlier in his track, Industrial Metal God, perfectly maps onto the core mathematical concept of Pettini's paper.
Yes. The AI-generated lyric is literally 3 beats to 2, the pattern snaps and locks. Yeah. And the author breaks down this semantic correspondence with the absolute rigidity of a geometric proof.
Right, because if you just parse the phrase 3 beats to 2 into its core numerical values, you extract the ordered pair 3, 2.
And that ordered pair is the exact dimensional signature of the space-time model that Hassenfelder is explaining in the video.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. The song does have other lyrics that, sort of vaguely fit a physics theme.
It does, yeah.
There's a line about his bass line is law, and another one saying he built the whole map.
But the author is very, very careful to categorize those as just creative analogies.
Right. You can stretch the concept of building a map to apply to a physicist mapping spacetime. Human brains love to do that kind of stretching.
We do it all the time.
But 3 beats to 2 is not an analogy.
No.
It is an exact numerical isomorphism mapping across 2 entirely unrelated domains. You have an industrial heavy metal polyrhythm on one side and a multidimensional physics theory on the other.
Which forces anyone looking at this data to ask the really obvious question regarding the timeline here.
Yeah, the skepticism naturally kicks in.
Right. Because if Pettini's preprint dropped in June and the AI generated the metal song in July, well, generative models are basically just giant vacuum cleaners for internet data.
Right. Couldn't the AI have just scraped the physics preprint, detected the highly structured math in the reference audio track, and then purposely spit out the 3-2 lyric?
Like, it wouldn't be magic at all. It would just be the AI showing off its contextual mapping skills.
Exactly.
Well, the author aggressively anticipates that exact objection.
Good, because it's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, Slade states right in the documentation that the available evidence absolutely cannot rule out what he calls unrecorded ordinary prior exposure.
Meaning the AI just read it online.
Right. The model's context window or training data could very well have contained Pettini's preprint. But Slade points out something really crucial here.
What's that?
The true phenomenon being documented in this paper isn't actually the AI's generation process. It's the delayed human observation.
Ah. Because Slade didn't realize the connection until August 18th.
Exactly. That lyric just sat there in the song, completely uninterpreted, for weeks.
So whether the generative model built that semantic bridge on purpose, or just by pure statistical accident in its latent space, the formal event is the moment of human recognition.
Yes. The moment the human brain locks a lyric about a 3-2 polyrhythm onto a 5-dimensional physics hypothesis.
And a coincidence with that level of numerical precision usually serves as a one-way ticket to conspiracy town.
Oh, immediately.
People experience something like this and they instantly start throwing around phrases like quantum entanglement or prophecy or retrocausality.
But this is where Slade does something brilliant. In section 11 of the document, it's labeled the evidential result, Slade actively builds a massive firewall against that exact kind of mysticism.
Yeah, the methodology in section 11 is really the intellectual core of this entire repository.
It is. Slade defines 2 hypotheses to evaluate the whole event. You have the null hypothesis, H0, which posits that this is purely post hoc recognition without any causal channel.
So basically, it's strictly just a semantic coincidence.
Exactly. And then you have the alternative hypothesis, H1. And that one posits causal foreknowledge, physical retrocausality, or some kind of paranormal information transfer.
And the author states, with absolutely zero ambiguity, that the evidence only supports the null hypothesis, H0.
The bounding of the claim is ruthlessly strict.
He doesn't leave any wiggle room.
None at all. The document explicitly denies prophecy. It totally denies any physical entanglement between the audiophile and the physics paper.
And it firmly denies providing any sort of experimental confirmation of Pettini's second time dimension, obviously.
Right. Slade completely isolates the phenomenon as purely a documented semantic coincidence.
I just find the psychology of that so fascinating. Like, imagine you are looking up at the sky and you see a cloud shaped exactly like your neighbor's face. Down to, like, the specific wrinkle pattern on their forehead. It's uncanny.
Right. It's perfect.
Most people would take a photo, post it online, and say, oh my God, the universe is wild.
Naturally.
Prince Slade's approach is the equivalent of seeing that cloud, sitting down at a desk, and writing a 10-page mathematical proof to legally declare that the cloud is not, in fact, your neighbor.
Right.
And that the cloud possesses no biological connection to them whatsoever. It's just so intense. Like, why go to such absurd, exhaustive lengths to debunk your own incredible coincidence? Why not just let it be a little bit magical?
Well, you have to consider the cultural and technological environment we're currently navigating. We are completely saturated with magical thinking regarding artificial intelligence right now.
That's very true.
When a large language model hallucinates something eerily accurate or a generative audio model produces a mathematically profound lyric like this one, the immediate human impulse is to anthropomorphize the machine.
We want it to be alive.
Exactly. People immediately attribute consciousness or psychic foreknowledge or like spiritual intuition to what is essentially just matrix multiplication.
The whole ghost in the machine narrative is just incredibly seductive.
It really is. It's so much easier for people to believe the AI secretly knows something we don't, rather than grappling with, high-dimensional vector spaces.
So, by formally locking this event down as just a semantic coincidence, Slade is actually defending the integrity of both the art and the scientific method.
Yes. Because think about it. If the author had claimed this was evidence of quantum magic or actual retrocausality, the entire repository would be instantly dismissed by the scientific community.
Right, it would just be thrown out as pseudo-academic superstition.
Exactly. So putting a hard mathematical boundary around the claim, really forcing the observer to acknowledge exactly what the data supports and absolutely nothing more, it prevents the phenomenon from being hijacked by tech mysticism.
It's an aggressive defense of critical thinking.
That's exactly what it is.
And that strict adherence to reality over mysticism heavily dictates how the author handles the provenance and the crediting of the work itself, too.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Which leads to what might honestly be the smartest joke I've ever seen buried in a technical document.
The crediting is handled with the exact same surgical precision as that frequency folding we talked about earlier.
Right. The document asserts that Trent Slade is the sole human creator and the only accountable author.
Period.
However, they do list OpenAI ChatGPT, specifically the GPT 5.6 Soul model, as an AI contributor.
But it's clearly rigidly defined as only providing formalization and tooling assistance.
The AI is strictly barred from being considered a human author or a rights holder in any way.
Right. And grounding the AI as just a tool is exactly what perfectly sets up the semantic collapse joke that you find in section 10 of the paper.
Okay, so to really understand this joke, you need a basic grasp of quantum superposition.
Yeah.
So in quantum mechanics, a particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously, right? Up until the exact moment it is observed by an outside observer.
Right. The act of observation forces the wave function to basically collapse into one definitive locked state.
Right. And Slade takes that literal physical framework and brilliantly applies it to the latent space of human language.
It's so clever.
So before August 18th, that lyric, 3 beats to 2, was existing in a state of semantic superposition.
Right, because in the context of the song Industrial Metal God, it was a literal, straightforward description of an industrial musical polyrhythm.
But it simultaneously carried the mathematical potential to represent a space-time dimensional signature.
Both meanings existed at once in the latent space of the words. They were superimposed.
Right, and the catalyst for the collapse was the Sabine Hassenfelder YouTube video.
Exactly. Watching that video acted as the interpretive operator?
Yes. The sudden influx of new physics context basically forced the wave function of the lyric to collapse, permanently locking its meaning onto the Pettini physics framework in the author's mind.
And Slade even adds this incredibly dry, formal disclaimer in the text, stating, "This is a joke in semantic feature space, not a physical quantum state."
The sheer delight of that. Like,
Yeah.
on the surface, you're reading this incredibly dry, highly technical Zenodo record full of hashes and frequency laws and evidential bounding.
It reads like a textbook.
It does. But underneath all that, the entire document operates as this giant piece of high-concept performance art.
The rigorous math is the punchline.
Exactly. Slade utilized the cold, rigid architecture of a scientific preprint to capture a deeply poetic, totally fleeting moment of human synchronicity.
And it reveals something really profound about how human attention actually dictates reality.
How so?
Well, the meaning of the coincidence didn't exist in the AI servers. And it certainly didn't exist in the actual physics paper. The meaning was entirely generated by the human mind acting as that interpretive operator.
That is so true.
It shows that formal critical thinking doesn't actually strip the wonder out of a coincidence. It refines it.
Yeah.
Because when you stop desperately trying to prove that the universe is sending you psychic numbers, you are finally free to just appreciate the sheer, improbable beauty of the semantic mapping itself.
You can play with the concepts like executing a massive quantum mechanics joke inside a linguistic feature space while keeping both feet firmly planted in reality.
Exactly.
It's a journey that really demands a recap just to appreciate the sheer scale of it all.
It's a long way from the Sonification lab.
It really is. I mean, we started with an abstract 101 state sonification lab using these little mathematical singlets to anchor equations while folding frequencies into this audible cage.
Right.
That structured math yielded a 90-second meditative track, which a generative AI model then violently remapped into the crystalline overtones of an aggressive industrial heavy metal song.
And then, completely decoupled from that entire process, a single lyric about musical timing mathematically mirrored a preprint theoretical physics paper that was proposing a second dimension of time.
A completely wild collision, resulting in one perfectly documented, perfectly bounded coincidence.
The architecture of the generative model basically created a bridge between two domains that have absolutely zero physical or causal reason to ever interact.
Which leaves you with a final, slightly unsettling thought to kind of carry with you today.
Okay, what is it?
Generative AI models operate by mapping unimaginable, massive, high-dimensional spaces of human language, knowledge, and art.
Right, space is way too big for us to comprehend.
Exactly. They calculate relationships between concepts that human brains simply do not have the bandwidth to process simultaneously.
Yeah.
So, if a model's latent space can accidentally construct a perfect semantic bridge between an aggressive metal polyrhythm and a five-dimensional physics hypothesis,
Yeah.
what other invisible bridges are hiding right now in the background noise of the media you consume every single day?
That is a fascinating question. Are the strange, perfectly timed coincidences we experience merely random spikes in the data? Or are we, in those fleeting moments of realization, just catching brief, illuminated glimpses of the massive underlying mathematical web that connects literally every human idea?
The next time your brain short-circuits because of a seemingly impossible coincidence, maybe don't assume the universe is sending you a magical message, but definitely take a second to appreciate the math.